every person will be disabled at some point in their lives, period.
Right.
You will, because it may be through the privilege of aging that you become a disabled person, or it may happen earlier than that. Disability doesn't discriminate. It affects every race, every culture, every age, every gender, every sexual orientation, everyone. No one is off limits.
Welcome to the Purpose Power Brand Show, where we have conversations with leaders and brands transforming business into a force for good. I'm Amanda Stassen, business and brand strategist, entrepreneur, and founder of Bizu Innovation. I'm speaking with business builders and entrepreneurs, the dreamers and the doers, who are proving that not only does purpose drive profit, but the future of our world depends on it. Now listen, if I were to ask you who you think the world's largest minority group is, what would you say? Would you have guessed people with disabilities? I didn't. Despite being the world's biggest minority with over 1 billion people and 16% of the population, people with disabilities around the world are often forgotten, and they regularly face discrimination and exclusion from their basic needs like healthcare, education, work, and community life. Now in Canada, we're looking at that number being around 27% of the population, or 8 million people, according to StatsCan's 2022 report, who live with at least one disability that's limited them in their daily abilities. Now, can business help solve this problem? Yes, it can. And today I have the absolute pleasure of chatting with Reuber, founder and CEO of Second Skin Society, a fitness company that's bringing people with or without disabilities together through movement. They're on a mission to reset the accessibility standard of the health and fitness industry. I'm excited to get to it. Let's go. Hey, Leanne, I'm thrilled to have you on the show. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
Awesome. So listen, I start the show the same way every time. I start by asking you about your personal purpose. And I know that that's a big question and it's a big one to leap into, but I like asking all my guests this because it really sets the tone and the context for why they're doing what they're doing. Because behind every business, every brand, there's a human. There's a human who felt to do something. And I really want to put that forward. So in one word, what would you say best describes your personal purpose, the thing that compels you to move forward as an entrepreneur?
Oh, goodness. In one word, belonging. If I had to sum it up, it would be belonging. If I was giving you a sentence, it would be I'm all about bringing people together. That is what I do in every aspect of my life.
I love that. I love the thing that's really key about this, what you just shared, is that belonging. It becomes kind of the code that influences the work that you're doing at Second Skin, but also in your personal life. I love how you kind of just wove the thread on that. So take us right back to the beginning. What's the origin story behind Second Skin? Like, where did the idea come from? What were you doing in your life? What sparked the idea?
Oh, I love the story. So I actually started working in disability inclusion when I was 13 years old, which is its own story in itself. So I won't go into that, but I started at 13. I ended up having an over 20-year career in that space where I was supporting people with all kinds of different disabilities in a variety of capacities. At the end of that career, I was managing 6 program areas across 2 agencies, employment support programs, recreational and therapeutic programs, and managing a few different teams. And at the time, I was going through a lot of just kind of personal transition in my life, and I had an opportunity to open a yoga studio. And I thought, why not, right? Go for it. When is this chance going to kind of present itself again? And so I did. So I opened the business as a brick and mortar yoga studio, end of 2018. We ran it for a year. We had a wonderful first year building a community there, and actually won an award for best yoga studio in our first year. And it was getting kind of a lot of hype. And ultimately what ended up happening was we got some hype, and then the pandemic came.
Of course.
And so I immediately started creating virtual content. At first it was on YouTube, and then really starting to think like, how can I kind of put this together in its own membership? And at the time, I was expanding services. So there were lots of other professionals in fitness that I had gotten to know over that year of having the studio. And I reached out to them saying, hey, would you record some content and have it as part of my membership? And then I started going to organizations that I knew offered their employees a gym or yoga studio membership and said, hey, we can fill this gap for you temporarily. We don't know if the pandemic is going to be 2 weeks, but your employees need a wellness benefit now more than ever, and here's something that we can offer to you. Now, what was interesting about this was I really just looked at it as a great learning opportunity. I truthfully did not know what I was doing, but I was very eyes wide open to being, in the space to learn.
Yeah.
And over about a year and a half of expanding services, working with multiple companies, and really more than anything, learning what was not working, I finally came to realize that the most feedback that we were getting from our members was that they loved that we offered both standing and seated class options. And this is exactly where disability inclusion kind of came rushing back into my career when I started thinking about what was available for people with disabilities in this space. Now, of course, through that exploration and having many, many conversations with people to understand what was impactful for them or where the fitness industry had failed them, and coming up with an idea for a product, I also started looking back on my previous career and also started looking at what I was doing during that time and what I saw other people doing during that time in terms of the way that support was being given. Right. And I really came to realize that those years, especially when I was at that age, the teenage years where I was doing a lot of growing up, those years shaped me in a way that I can't really articulate other than to tell you that it was so normal for me to be around people with disabilities every single week after school, on weekends, being with them, being with their families, building relationships, and really understanding that they are no different than someone without a disability. And there's such a disconnect between people with and without disabilities, which is so interesting to me. And when I think about what we're doing now, which is we've built a fully accessible in air quotes, because there's no such thing. We're continuously working on building more and more accessibility in the fitness space with our product. Yeah. It reaches a broad audience and a broad range of abilities and just preferences as well. And it's truly meant to bring people with and without disabilities together through movement. So when I talked about, my purpose being belonging, and the way in which I'm doing that is really about bringing people together. This product, this business, the way that we work with leaders in corporations, and the way that we're really, out there in this thought leadership position as how can we create more spaces that will give more people the same experiences that I had at 13 years old, where it was so normal for me to be immersed in a community of people with all kinds of different abilities and all kinds of different needs. That's truly what I've built into the business, and that's the community that we're working to build through our product.
Yeah. I love that. We often talk about, the moment where it got personal, or the moment where you discover through your research or through the work that you're doing that there's this enemy that you're fighting against, a cause to rally behind. What was it about this space that lit a fire? Or when was that moment where you felt like not just that someone should do something about this because it's missing, but rather I should do something? When did it get personal for you?
Oh, it's a series of moments, and I continue to have them. Truly, it's in so many conversations. I've had so many people just in tears thanking me for just the idea of what we're doing because of how impactful it is for them in their lives. Yeah. And if you really think about exercise being such a vital component of overall health, and to not have access to exercise in a way that works for your body, that you can, have independence and also belonging. Right. I just can't even imagine that experience. So I understand the impact. That's certainly one of the personal experiences, but I really think that a lot of the the drive and the passion behind that piece, the belonging piece, and wanting to bring people with different experiences together, it stems way back to the work that I had done, for years and years at a time where I was growing up and going through high school. And I remember very, very clearly one moment that forever changed my life. I was supporting someone who lived independently in her own apartment. And so I would just come in and help with things like making sure that she had everything that she needed for groceries or medication or anything like that, it was just a check-in and really an opportunity to make sure that she was supported. And I stopped into her apartment and she was absolutely just in tears, distraught. I've never seen a person so upset before. And I was trying to understand, what was wrong so I could help. And she had told me that the kids across the street, as she was going into her apartment, were yelling at her across the street and calling her the R word. Now, this is a grown woman who just really, it hurt her so deeply to have these people that were ridiculing her, not knowing anything about her, and doing so publicly, where anyone in the downtown area could and would have seen and heard it. It changed me. It absolutely changed me, because I couldn't believe that, number one, that someone would do that. I mean, I think we all know that people are out there and do things like that, but to understand and see the repercussions of how it impacted this human being, it hurt me. It hurt me to see her hurt so deeply. And that's just one of the moments that I think back to, and I often share with people about, this whole journey for me and what it means for me. It is really understanding that we are all just human beings. We have more things in common than we do that separate us. And we are constantly looking at, all the things in all the ways in which we're different. And instead, if we would just focus on the ways that we are similar, what an incredible society that we could live and thrive in. I couldn't pick one moment that was really I have to do this. It's truly kind of been in me for a long time.
Yeah. No, that's so powerful. It is so powerful when we reflect on the moments in our life that sort of culminate for entrepreneurs or people in business, entrepreneurs specifically, that culminate in the creation of something. I have to do something about this. I've heard that line over and over again. And I've said it myself. I have to do something about this. I can't wait for someone else to do. I need to try. Yeah. Now, when you and I first connected, you shared something that it's just totally stuck with me. You said that people with disabilities are the largest minority group in the world. And it was such a startling thought to grasp. I mean, I wouldn't have thought that. So I had to do some research, and the numbers are actually nuts. Like, according to the World Health Organization, 1.3 billion people are living with disabilities in the world today, and that they are, in fact, the largest minority in the world today. And in Canada, I think it was, according to Stats Can, the 2022 numbers was 27% of Canadians age 14 and over. So that's like over 8 million people here in Canada have one or more disabilities that are limiting their daily activities. And that number is growing. Now, for clarity, before we dive into, I'd love to know why, your take on why that number is growing in Canada or even globally. I want to set some definitions, because depending on who you talk to, depending on whether it's an insurance company or the Canadian government or some other government, what constitutes disability? How would you define it? And then tell me why you think it's growing.
Oh goodness, that's so disability encompasses so many different things. So it would be hard for me to put a real definition on it, but ultimately, it includes people who are blind or have low vision, and of course that's a spectrum. It includes people who are deaf or hard of hearing, and that is a spectrum. It includes people that have amputation or limb difference, and of course there's all kinds of the spectrum there. People with spinal cord injury. It also includes people who have chronic chronic illness. So they might have a disability as a result of a diagnosis versus an injury. There are people with, developmental disabilities. There's so many people that are encompassed in that. And truthfully, the reason that I think that number is growing more than anything is because people are actually starting to feel more comfortable to disclose their disability. So there's a lot of visible disabilities, for example, that you would see someone using a wheelchair. You can recognize that. And there are also so many invisible disabilities that people are only now coming to recognize in themselves through diagnoses, because there has been created a space where more people are aware of the presence. And so, that number that is growing certainly is part of, we also have an aging population that is becoming quite large, and that's included in that as well, because some people, so the thing that I would say is that every person will be disabled at some point in their lives, period. You will, because it may be through the privilege of aging that you become a disabled person, or it may happen earlier than that. What's interesting about this community, and hopefully I'm not going to take us too far off on a tangent, but what's interesting about this community is that it is the largest minority group in the world. And also, if you actually start to think about inclusion of this group, you're not just including the largest minority group in the world, you're actually including everyone, because disability doesn't discriminate. It affects every race, every culture, every age, every gender, every sexual orientation, everyone. No one is off limits for disability. And so that's an interesting thing just to keep in mind when it comes to inclusion, is that when you focus on including people with disabilities, you're actually creating a space for everyone. And the second part of that, I would say, is that disability can happen at any moment. So not only are we sure that at some point, I am becoming more and more disabled with my vision loss and hearing loss, even at a relatively young age. I am affected by a lot of the different things, like, I wish so many times where I'm watching a television show or a movie that I could turn up just the volume of the voices, not the background music, not the special effects. If I could just turn up the volume of the voices, I would have a better user experience, because I am experiencing hearing loss. So interestingly, that disability is the largest minority group. It affects every single community, and it can happen to anyone in a split second. It might be in 30 years from now, but it might be tomorrow.
It's wild when you stop and think about it. But I love the way that you guys have framed it, that you're a fitness community or a fitness offering or a fitness product that's for everybody and for every body. And I think that really sums it up beautifully, because it brings people together, as opposed to, as you said, focusing on the differences. It's focusing on the similarities. We're all human beings. So, okay, so we've got the market. We know the market. Let's talk about the problem, the specific problem that Sekond Skin is solving for this market, and what makes you different than other fitness companies.
So certainly the intentionality with respect to accessibility. So our app is, you're able to navigate it using a screen reader. There's a lot of customization included. So for example, I had mentioned turning up the volume of the voices on TV. Well, you can adjust the volume of the instructor separate from the music, so much so that you can actually turn the music all the way down or off if you don't prefer the playlist. You can add captions, but also you can adjust those caption text size and the color contrast. We have multiple standing and seated class options, classes that are taught with American Sign Language for those that use that as a communication. And also all of our classes offer enhanced cueing so that people who are blind can participate independently just using those audio files. So a lot of intention in the offer, and kind of the way that we bring it all together is with the ability to turn on a second screen. So users can actually turn on a second screen and be able to view multiple class versions at the same time. And what it does is create an experience where if you're working out with a friend that uses a wheelchair and you don't, maybe, you'd like to take a standing class version and they would require a seated class version, you'd be able to participate in the class together and be able to work out together because of how we've kind of brought it all together. So definitely that's the belonging piece. That's where we're really bringing people with and without disabilities together through fitness.
I would imagine that there's like a really great opportunity. So this is more direct to consumer, but I would imagine that there's a great opportunity in the B2B side of this as well. Have you guys been making inroads in that area?
Yeah. So similar to how, when we kind of shifted through the pandemic and we were working B2B in that way, originally when we were doing all the different market research around this, our entire focus was direct to consumer, but we actually had someone reach out from a pretty large corporation, their global director of benefits, because one of their employees saw our website and said, hey, you should check this out. And it just kind of re-sparked that, there's a great opportunity for us to grow in the B2B space, and specifically with organizations who have actually prioritized inclusive hiring practices. We can come in then and offer a wellness benefit that meets the needs of their employees with and without disabilities. And really, again, fostering those inclusion initiatives that they've already started and supporting them to take those further to that belonging that everyone wants to experience at work and at home and in whatever communities that they're joining. So definitely working with corporations as well.
I love that. Now, what's been the hardest part for you growing this business? How how have you been working through it?
Oh my goodness. How could I ever choose one hardest part? It's I think the first thing that comes to mind is that it's creating something from nothing. I had an idea after all of these conversations with people that I was really kind of getting into what makes fitness impactful for you, or how has the fitness industry failed you? And in those conversations, I learned so much that kind of fed into the idea that I had, but I'm not a technical founder. I certainly had no clue how to create the vision that I had in my mind. So creating something from nothing, not only just not being able to do it myself, but not having the team at that time to do it, not having the resources to do it, really feeling like I know I have something and now how do I create it? That was really hard. And to be honest, I initially had started pitching for investment for this idea, and I wasn't getting very far with the investor conversations. I mean, I built some wonderful relationships that are now really supporting us. But at the time, which was about a year ago, I wasn't getting far. And I thought, well, how else? If it's not going to be from investment, then how else could it be? And, I don't know if listeners or if yourself believe in all of the things related to, kind of divine intervention and manifestation and all those things. But I'm telling you, I had no idea how to do what I knew that I needed to do, not just like needed to from seeing the problem, but needed to as a life purpose thing. And I happened to meet two incredible people randomly through LinkedIn who ended up coming in and saying, how do I get to support this? Because I have my own, lived experience. I totally understand the problem that you're solving. I want to solve it too. And I said, I don't know, because I have no money. How can you work? How can you support me? And they ended up coming in a leadership position, just ready to dig in with me and figure out the way to make it happen. Not only that, but they brought in other people along with them, made introductions, and really, it's the team that I was able to build before we were bringing in kind of those financial resources. That the team allowed us to get some more grant opportunities, and basically we've built the product just with sheer willpower and finding a way. That's been the hardest thing is, when you don't see it, how do you keep going? How do you
Oh,
take that passion and purpose and keep going? And
yeah.
there is always a way. There's always
Yeah.
a way.
Yeah. It's interesting that you say that because there is an element of faith that is required in having a dream or a purpose or something that is a fire in your belly that you want to bring forward or create. And so there is something that you have to hold on to because there are going to be those moments where it feels like you're not getting the support or people are not understanding or it's just not moving forward. And so
Yeah.
there is an element of, I don't know, definitely divine intervention that
Yeah. Yeah.
you need to hold on to something. There is a
Yep.
faith that's required that this will happen kind of thing.
Yep.
Now you're twigging me on this idea of, so in this journey that you've been on, what would you say is the scrappiest thing that you've ever done that you're surprised that you did, but looking back on it now, you're like, I can't believe I did that, but I did it, to help grow the business?
Oh, goodness. Well, I did do quite a lot of coaching for a period of time. There was about a year that I was coaching other entrepreneurs.
Okay.
I've done mostly specifically on mindset things because I
Okay.
do the faith. I'll just be straight up. I'm unshakable in what I know that I can achieve. And
Mm,
I can say that and know it because I have done so much work on myself, in myself. I've looked
mm,
at through this whole process, I've looked at all the deepest, darkest corners of myself and
yeah.
faced all the things that I've been, wanting to keep hidden, all the mistakes that I've
Mm,
made, all the failures that I've had. I've gone through that process. And so the power in it, in taking responsibility for all of those things that you wish didn't exist, that you wish weren't there, that, you wish that you had the beautiful Instagram story and that was it. The power in taking
yeah.
responsibility in those things really elevates you and it gives you confidence in what you're
Mm,
doing. And so I worked for a period of time with several entrepreneurs who were also wanting to create big impact in completely different ways. And I
right.
worked with them just simply on what are the thoughts that you are having on a regular basis and how are those holding you back and how can we change those. So that was uh I think in general, when it comes to being scrappy, I can move a lot of things around as many times as I need. I have come up with offers on a spot just to be like, hey, I heard something from this conversation. I can meet a need here. I'm going to sell it. And this is a way that I can bring in, some money to keep going with what I'm doing and create impact for this person that has expressed a need. Um, I think I know I'm incredibly intuitive. And so when I hear things and I have an idea that is stemming from impact, I act on those things very, very quickly. And ultimately I think the scrappy way to do things is just to do it unscared, to do
Mm,
it not knowing if it's going to be the thing that gives you what you need in that moment, but if you have the idea and it feels like it's going to create impact for someone else, just to put it out there over and over and over again. I've done that in many, many, many different ways over the last few years. Yeah.
that's so good. Do it. So the way I say it a little bit differently. I say, if you're, do it afraid because the fear
Yeah.
is there. Yeah. I mean, it's
Yeah.
going to be
Yeah. You're
there.
right.
There may never be a time where something doesn't frighten you, but do it anyway. Take
Yeah.
that leap anyway. It's easier said than done, but that's what I always tell myself. Now you're about to launch the app version of Second Skin
Hmm.
Society because you've been building the business, if you will,
Hmm.
in different formats, but the app is about to launch, which is amazing. Now, there are so many apps in the market. There's so many apps in the market. What would you say is like the biggest hurdle that you've had to face in building this? And then
Mm.
what advice would you give to entrepreneurs who are also thinking about doing an app?
Mm. Oh, the biggest challenge truly in building the app itself was all the different accessibility features that we wanted to be
Mm,
integrated. We had to certainly pick and choose what we could start with and what we knew that we would want to add quickly thereafter once we launched, and we're starting to get feedback from that experience itself. prior to even starting to build, we did a lot with content, and we would do things like have a standing and seated class version and bring people into a Zoom room, and be able to, have people experience that side by side screen, and what does that feel like, and get feedback, so that we knew that we were building something that we already had that validation that it was impactful. But in terms of actually building, again, I'm not the technical person on the team, but everything has been a hurdle with respect to accessibility, even all the way up to, going through the App Store approval process, and understanding that the code that we've built, that is basically, if I can give, I hope that I'm not going to get this wrong, but there's design systems that most app developers use when they're developing something. And for us to be able to do what we wanted it to do, we were basically building our own code to stack on top of this design system that already existed. Because of lack of resources, a specific time frame, all those things, we weren't going and creating our entire new design system, though that will come. What we needed to do was use what we had and be able to modify it to meet our needs, specifically related to accessibility. And through that process, the amount of App Store submissions where something would need to be fixed, and so we would fix it on iOS, and then it would end up breaking the code for Android, and that back and forth, it was just
right.
It's a lot. And in terms of people that are looking to build an app, I'm so grateful that we had support from Centennial College and some funding through MyTax, which is available in Canada for projects like these. The great piece of it, I was so excited that we got to teach a lot about accessibility for those students and that team as a result of them supporting us to build it. So we had our own accessibility team, and we had our own, developers in-house that were kind of overseeing the things that the students were doing with their team. But the learning experience was phenomenal for both perspectives. And I love that, through us just creating what we wanted to create, we created impact for those students that now have a better understanding of accessibility when it comes to apps. That, I think that's what I would say is, for someone that's looking to build an app, accessibility needs to be baked in from the start. It is so much harder, and often that's the reason that it doesn't get done later on. People do use, overlays for things like websites and those types of things, which are really just not a great user experience, especially for someone that's using a screen reader. The earlier you can think about accessibility when you are creating a product, the better it will be.
That's so good. And I love how you've literally done a bit of a case study for me while we've been talking about your story, because you've brought to life the fact that when you got this idea, you didn't know how it was going to manifest. You didn't know how it was going to actually develop. So you started to just walk into it, and you did classes, then you did classes of Zoom, then you brought on other people, then you talked to different businesses. All the way through, you were building this idea, and you were building it in real time, like literally in public, as you were kind of thinking and growing and learning. And now it's the version that's going to be manifested is this app. And I love that, because a lot of entrepreneurs think, or business leaders, even if they're intrapreneurs, they think that they have to have the idea finalized, ready, solid before it even hits the market. And I feel differently about that. I feel like you've got to get to the market fast, and the market itself will help you shape it, whether you have an idea or not, and help you to evolve it, because you were able to get real-time feedback on what's working, what's not working, what do people like, what they don't like, what the real needs are, and how to evolve this, and how to engage people right at the get-go. And I think that is so powerful. I think that's so powerful.
And especially when it comes to what we are doing and anything
Yeah.
that's related to accessibility and inclusion, because if you're really truly wanting to create something with this idea of universal design, it's a
Yes.
lifelong pursuit. You will never
Yes.
actually reach universal design. So the
Yes.
sooner that you can actually embrace that concept of, I'm always going to listen, my ego is going to stay over there. It doesn't matter what I think is impactful. It matters. Well, it also matters what I think is impactful, but in
Yes.
combination with all of these other diverse perspectives, it matters
Yes.
what is impactful for all of the people that I really want to create impact for. So
Mm.
if you wait and get to hey, I have a great idea, I'm going to create this from start to finish, and then I'm going to show it to the people that I really want to support, and
Mm-hmm.
then you end up finding out that the thing that was really impactful was way over here.
Right.
You're going to waste
Right.
time and
Totally.
resources, and I think often that is a way that entrepreneurs end up failing
Yes.
in that specific business ideas, because
Yeah.
they're so caught up in their own idea, rather
Yes.
than I'm caught up, I am enamored at the thought of more people telling me what needs to change.
Mm.
Like, I'm going after that, because I think about all kinds of people that I have yet to kind of build for when it comes to this massive community of people with disabilities, all of the communities underneath of that umbrella. It truly will take my entire life to be able to serve them in the way that I want to. And just
Mm.
knowing that going in just kind of lets you let your shoulders down a little bit and go, yeah, it's not going to be perfect. It never is, because I'm always going to be sitting here listening for more feedback.
So good. So good. Now, as I'm kind of bringing our conversations coming, closer to the end, you're making me think that, we talk to a lot of investors, and one of the things that they look for is the founder's vision. Does the founder believe in their vision, but can they also articulate their vision in such a way that it rallies people around them?
Mm.
And so if you were pitching someone right now, how would you articulate what's your big vision that would rally people around you and rally them to invest in Second
Mm.
Skin Society?
Oh, goodness. We don't have enough time to go into the full vision, but it's really truly at the end of it stems from that exact thing that we started with, which is belonging. Every
Yeah.
single human being wants to feel like they belong. They want to feel seen, heard, understood, and valued for who they are, where they are. Every person
Yes.
has that in common. I think when you
Yes.
look at fitness specifically, the fitness apps, because there, like you said, there are no shortage of apps out there. The
Right.
ones that have been successful have built a community where people
Yes.
come together and support each other for a common goal. And for
Yes.
us, we're kind of taking that. Yes, we're in the fitness space. Yes, that's exactly what we want to build, but we're taking it even further to this sense
Mm.
of belonging,
Yeah.
where I think about the roadmap to belonging, and I talk with people about it being, first it's awareness, then it's taking responsibility for the space that you have created or failed to create. Once
Mm.
you take responsibility, then you get to look at who's here, who's not, how can I create this space where everyone understands that I'm looking for them, I'm wanting to welcome them in. Once you look at all the people that you want to welcome in, accessibility has to be the next step, because that is a barrier for so many. And
Right.
once it's an accessible space, it moves to inclusion. And once you find inclusion, you can get to this sense of belonging by making sure that everyone feels a sense of belonging. So
Mm.
interestingly, I had a conversation with an investor yesterday, and I said to him, what we are selling is belonging, because
Mm.
there is nothing more powerful than that brings people together. And I really think that in fitness specifically, because it's hard, everybody would love to just be able to be incredibly healthy without having to do anything for it. Right?
Mm.
Like we are all we all have days where we don't want to show up. We all have
Yep.
days where we think it would just be so much easier if this wasn't part of my to-do list for the day.
Yep.
So because it is a challenge to show up and have this really great concrete wellness routine, to build a sense of belonging into it, it makes it so much easier for you to want to show up and do it,
Mm.
because you're not just doing it for you, you're doing it with this community
Yeah.
that you're part of.
Yeah. Oh, that's so great. That's a great vision because it's all about rallying people to be really the best that they can be in whatever form they want to
Yeah.
do it in. And I
Yeah.
think that's beautiful and it's very powerful. So before we wrap up, what two practical tips would you share that would help founders and entrepreneurs purposefully, accelerate their business and brand growth today?
Oh, I love this question, and I did make a note. And one of the first things that I wanted to say was, don't niche yourself out of inclusion. So
Mm.
this relates to both impact and business growth because this is a huge market. Disability inclusion is a huge market, a relatively untapped market. It's almost always an afterthought. There's a
Hmm.
great business opportunity. And while you do, as an entrepreneur, you want to niche yourself into understanding, who do I want to serve so
Hmm.
that I
Hmm.
can make sure that I'm reaching them with my messaging. There are things that you can do to still be inclusive, even with this idea of like, who's the community. And I want to
Hmm.
encourage people not to niche themselves out of inclusion, because I'll tell you right now that I am who I am today. I have the passions and interests and hobbies that I have today. And if tomorrow I lost my right arm, I would have the
Right.
same passions and interests and hobbies as I have
Mm.
today
So
without
good.
my
Yeah.
arm. So this idea of like, people with disabilities are other, they're over there, that is
Mm.
generally a perception that society has, and I really want to encourage people to get rid of that idea. People with
Hmm.
disabilities are all around you, whether you recognize it or not. And simple
Mm.
things that someone can do today to show that they're wanting to be inclusive of this community: add camel case hashtags, meaning camel case is to capitalize the first letter of every word in your hashtag.
Mm.
Add captions to all of your videos if you don't already do that. I mean, that is for accessibility, but also you're going to just reach a wider audience.
Right.
And also image and video descriptions. People are very afraid to do this. Keep it simple. Just share the essence of what it is that you're wanting to show. Those three things immediately signal that you're thinking about inclusion. So it
Mm.
immediately signals to this community that, hey, someone is being intentional to reach me. They want to
Right.
reach me. So don't
Right.
niche yourself out of inclusion. And the second thing I would say is, and this is something I am really leaning into and learning a lot more about, know your story. Take a deep dive into who you are and what's brought you to doing what you're doing, and
Yeah.
share it openly.
Mm.
Be vulnerable. Allow yourself to really say, you know what, I'll just be transparent. There have been many times, especially in the last year, where I've been afraid to say the things that I think, in a really big and bold way, because I am not someone today that identifies with having a disability. And so to lead
Mhm.
in this space, it feels like I'm going to be judged. And in all honesty,
Mm.
I have been. I
Right.
just have been.
Yeah.
But I
And
have taken a deep dive at, like, why am I the way that I am? Why do I feel
right.
so strongly about doing what I'm doing? And why do I truly believe it's my life purpose?
Yes.
And the more that I
Yes.
look at those things, the more it just makes it easier for me to share openly. Like, this is the world that I see. This is the change that I want to create. I believe that as an individual, I can do that, and I can
Hmm.
bring people along with me. This is not about me. This is about creating spaces to uplift other people and to bring
Hmm.
everyone together. And I'm not going to be silent or hide away just because I don't yet have a disability.
Yeah.
So know your
Yeah.
story, be vulnerable, share it openly. The energy that it attracts as you're communicating with people, either in a format like this or, in your social media content or whatever it is, it is it will awestruck people when you really speak from who you are at an individual level. It will
Mm.
draw people into that energy. So know your
Mm.
story, share it openly.
Mm. I love that. And it is exactly one of the reasons why I always open up, or I don't think I'm going to change the format, but this idea of opening up with what is your personal purpose? Because that is the energy. That is the passion. That is the vision. Everything is encompassed in that purpose that propels the founder forward. And it is the thing that is the most personal to you more often than not. Yeah, you can have examples of people who have nothing to do with the particular business that they're launching or the idea. But at the end of the day, when the person has passion, when they have that, when it aligns with their purpose, they will be able to rally people around them. They will be able to unify their team. They will be able to get the investment. They will be able to make the change that they want to see.
Yeah.
I would hypothesize faster and with more impact than someone who is just doing it for the money.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
A lot of when you think about entrepreneurship, you think about the YouTubers, you think about whoever, and no offense, but at the end of the day, people can see through that. And are they going to rally around this idea because you want to make whatever amount of money that you want to make? Or are they going to rally around the idea because it somehow has touched them or aligns with their particular purpose? And so they want to join forces with you. 100%. I think it's the latter.
Yeah. Agreed. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. So now where can people learn more about you and Second Skin? What are your call outs?
So our website is secondskinsociety.com, and second is spelled with a K. That's a great place to just learn a little bit about us. LinkedIn is the place that you'll probably find me the most right now. So we have a LinkedIn business page, and then Leanne Reuber is my name, and I have a LinkedIn profile, and I'm quite active in conversations there. Those are two probably the best places. We do have Instagram and Facebook in terms of business pages there that you can find out as well.
Awesome. Leanne, thank you so much for sharing your experience and your insights. And just in case you haven't heard this today, thank you for living and sharing your purpose. The world is made so much better because of it. Thank you so much again.
Oh, thank you.
Hey, thanks for listening to this episode of the Purpose Power Brand Show. I hope you learned something new. I hope this inspired you to be and build the change you want to see in the world. I just love how Leanne's purpose is coming alive in her business, Second Skin Society, and how at the end of the day, her vision is to create the sense of belonging for everybody and everybody through fitness. Now listen, casting a big vision is so important for rallying people around your idea, whether it's an employee that you want to hire or whether it's investors, because building anything is going to take a team, and nobody's going to rally around an idea that they can't see their purpose in. So cast a big vision. The other nugget from Leanne's story that I want to highlight for us is not to wait with your idea before getting it in front of people. Don't fall into the trap of thinking that you have to have everything figured out before you start talking about it. Test early, test fast, fail fast, learn and evolve. Her idea started with her doing fitness classes, then doing fitness classes online, then reaching out to businesses and working with them on their wellness classes. And now it's evolved into an app. So all the way through, she was testing, she was learning, she was evolving her thinking, and she was talking to the people for whom she wanted to make an impact. So it doesn't have to be perfect, just start. Thank you again for being here. Until next time, keep moving forward, keep building, keep growing, keep sharing your vision. The world needs courageous entrepreneurs and leaders just like you now more than ever. Until next time, bye for now.